Somebody in the chat asked me to rerun the clip, and I did. Twice. And the second time through it hit different. Because the thing that stuck wasn't the single line, wasn't the stressed line, wasn't even the Yaya photo everybody's still circling. It was the pivot. Midstream, Kai Bandz stops talking about himself and Jaidyn Alexis and starts talking about Karlissa. Unprompted. Volunteered. A whole DM allegation dropped on a live feed with a laugh tucked behind it. That's not a slip. That's a choice. And once you notice the choice, the whole stream reads different. Quick one before this gets into the paper. If you rock with breakdowns that actually sit with the footage instead of reacting to the first 30 seconds of it, tap the like, pull the subscribe, flip the bell on so the follow-up doesn't get buried. Team's already pulling the next thread. Don't miss it. Here's the surface. Dry as we can keep it. On or around August 3rd, 2026, Kai Bandz, the rapper linked publicly to Jaidyn Alexis, mother of Blueface 2 children, went live and said, in his own words, that his single, that is stressed, and that Karlissa Saffold, Blueface mother, was in his DMs trying to book him for a reality dating segment featuring Jaidyn. The stream ran across his own channel and got clipped to X and TikTok within hours. Jaidyn's response so far, a stream of her own where she leaned on the My Man framing, then quietly softened it once the Yaya Nevea Akira photos moved. The paper we're tracking today is that stream, that DM claim, and the timeline underneath both. One name the surface brief didn't have room for, and it matters as this expands. Whack 100, the manager tied publicly to the Potter family orbit and to the tape cycle that surrounded Jaidyn earlier this year. Whack has spoken on Kai and Jaidyn during Clubhouse rooms archived by fan accounts and referenced in Complex's ongoing Blueface coverage, and his name keeps surfacing on the periphery of the visibility push. The venue underneath the surface is Las Vegas, specifically the traveling tournament circuit Jaidyn mentioned on her own stream, which places the casually dating retreat inside a specific geography rather than a vague one. And the docket detail worth planting early, Blueface active Los Angeles County felony matter, case number BA 491252 as listed in state records, is the paper backdrop against which every visibility play in this cycle has been staged. Hold on to the case number. It comes back. Now, let me walk this the way I actually walked it when I sat down with it, because there's a seam here and I want to show you where it's split. Pass 1 is what's actually on camera. Not what people are saying about what's on camera, what's on it. Kai, on stream, direct quote as clipped by fan accounts and reposted across X. Karlissa was in my DM banging my line to be on a love show with Jay. He follows it with, and I'm reading this carefully because the phrasing matters, she trying to use me for clout on a damn world show. Then the tag, you're was trying to use me. Now when they hit the fan, I'm trying to use her for clout. Make this make sense. That's the stream, verifiable across multiple re-upload accounts and reported by HipHopDX in their coverage of the exchange. Jaidyn's stream, the one that came up right before this, the plate clip, her friend, referred to on air as Sam, in the room with her. Jaidyn tells the room, Kai said I wasn't allowed to make plates anymore. Sam's response on stream, girl, we don't give a about what your man said. He got to pass the probationary period. That clip's been mirrored on every gossip page from the neighborhood talk to fan-run repost accounts, and it's the clip that had comment sections turning on Kai before Kai even opened his own laptop. And the Yaya photo, Nevea Akira, known online as Yaya, appears in a set of images with Kai that reposted around late July into early August. The images themselves aren't the receipt. The receipt is Jaidyn's on-stream reaction to them, where she pivots from my man to we casually dating. Here and there when I'm in town, I'm on the traveling tournament. That's a direct quote from her own stream. 2 framings, same man, 7 to 2 hours apart. Both hairs. Layer on top of that a second Kai quote, the feist round clips buried under the DM allegation. Later in the same stream, according to a mirror uploaded and covered by Hot New Hip Hop, Kai told the audience, I ain't never called that girl my girl on no camera, y'all did that. That's a tier 1 line. He said it on his own live feed, timestamped in the archive. The camera has him on record separating himself from a label the internet applied to him, not one he claimed. Flat delivery. No laugh behind it that time. Pull, one more from the Jaidyn side, because pass 1 needs it balanced. On the plate stream, before Sam's probationary line, Jaidyn also said, and this is quoted directly from the clip mirrored by the Shade Room's IG repost, "He act like he pay a bill in here." One sentence. Said with a laugh. Filed under joking. But on the record. She said it about the man she was, in the same stream, calling her man. And a fourth. Karlissa Saffold, on her own IG Live from earlier in the summer, said, "Per the archived clip covered by all hip-hop, Jaidyn my daughter-in-law regardless of paperwork." Direct quote. Public statement. That's the frame she's been publicly holding, daughter-in-law, family, orbit, long before Kai went live. It's tier 1 because it's her own mouth on her own feed. And it matters for past 2. Flat reaction. Filed. That's the filing. No spin yet. Just what's on tape. Past 2, the overlay. This is where I had to back up and reread, because something about the sequence didn't line up on first watch. Wait. Let me actually walk it. The plate clip drops first. Jaidyn is doubling down on my man language and citing Kai as the reason she's not extending hospitality to Karlissa Saffold and Sam in her own house. That's a public flex. She's using Kai's name as authority in her own space. Days later, the Yaya photos surface. Jaidyn's language on Kai instantly retreats to casually dating. Then, and this is the part that tightened up for me on the second watch, Kai goes live and doesn't defend Jaidyn. He doesn't clarify the plate thing. He doesn't rebut the Yaya photos whether that's my cousin or a we was just talking business. He goes at Karlissa. He drops the DM claim. He calls the whole arrangement a clout trade. And he tags it with stressed. The sequence reads as retreat. Somebody who wanted the relationship framing to hold does not, 3 days later, publicly torch the woman positioned as his future mother-in-law adjacent while calling himself single on the same stream. That's not a man managing a rough patch. That's a man cutting a cord. And the timing under the timing, because Blueface, Jonathan Porter, is currently incarcerated on the felony charges documented by Rolling Stone in their ongoing coverage of his case. The Blueface tape that got mentioned in the source chatter, the one that circulated earlier this year featuring Jaidyn, that wasn't a one-off. That was a positioning move, and Karlissa has been public about wanting to keep Jaidyn inside the Porter family orbit for the sake of Chrisian Jr. and the Blueface children Jaidyn has custody of. So when Kai says Karlissa DM'd him about a reality show with Jaidyn, that's not a random accusation. That fits, allegedly, a pattern of Karlissa engineering visibility for Jaidyn during the stretch her son can't do it himself. Whether the DM exists exactly the way Kai described it is a tier 2 question. Whether Karlissa has publicly pushed for Jaidyn's continued visibility during Blueface incarceration is a matter of her own posts, archived across her Instagram history and covered by outlets like Hot New Hip Hop. Now, I want to be honest here. The DM claim is Kai's word. There's no screenshot in the public yet. He said it on stream, laughing, mid-flow, no receipt held up to the camera. So the pattern lines up. The paper doesn't. Not yet. I'll say that plainly instead of pretending otherwise. Here's the mechanic underneath the mechanic. Look at the daughter-in-law regardless of paperwork line. That's not a slip either. Karlissa was preloading the frame months before Kai showed up on it. If the Porter family orbit publicly claims Jaidyn as family, then any man Jaidyn dates is dating into the Porter family. That's not romance framing. That's brand infrastructure. And it appears to line up with a pattern where Karlissa positions Jaidyn's visibility as an extension of the Blueface catalog rather than an independent artist rollout, the Stewie cycle, the MILF music imprint traffic, the podcast rotations. The paper reads as scaffolding. Line the plate stream against the Yaya photo release against Kai's live, and the calendar tightens. The plate clip lands. 24 to 48 hours later, the Yaya set surfaces. Another 7 to 2 hours after that, Kai's live. That's a 5 to 6 day arc. Not a slow burn. Not a long simmering breakup. A pressure cooker. And the pressure appears to build on Jaidyn's side first. She's the one who has to switch vocabularies from my man to casually mid-cycle. Kai never has to switch. He never claimed the my man frame. He never denied it either. Until the live. On the live, he denied it retroactively, which is a very different move than denying it in real time. There's a second overlay worth naming, the traveling tournament. Jaidyn used that phrase, "I'm on the traveling tournament," in the same breath as casually dating. That's Chrisian Jr.'s youth basketball circuit, the one Karlissa has posted from repeatedly, per her own IG. So the venue where the casually dating retreat happened is a venue Karlissa co-inhabits. Which means the Yaya photos didn't just surface in the abstract, they surfaced while Jaidyn was inside the Porter family's shared physical rotation. That's not a comfortable geography for a breakup announcement, and it may be part of why the announcement, when it came from Kai's channel and not hers. One more overlay. The song. Kai said, on the same stream, that he was still drop that song. He didn't say the song's title. He didn't say the release date. But dropping that reference on the same live where he called himself single, tagged himself stressed, and named Karlissa as the alleged architect, that's a business signal riding a personal one. Artists don't tease unreleased records on the same stream they announce breakups by accident. That combination is a rollout. Whether it's a rollout he planned Monday morning or one he improvised in the moment when the Yaya photos moved is the open question. Either way, the record is now sitting on top of the drama like a fuse. I'll flag something that could complicate the read, because the honest overlay names its own hedges. If Kai has a management team steering this, the single and stressed live might not be an exit. It might be a leverage play designed to renegotiate the visibility terms rather than end them. Rappers have run this exact play before. So the sequence I'm reading as a cord cutting could also read as a public counteroffer. I lean cord cutting because he named a specific alleged actor and made a specific allegation. Leverage plays usually stay abstract. But I want that hedge on the record. This one's about to divide the timeline in half, because half the room is going to read the Karlissa as architect frame as accountability, and the other half is going to read it as scapegoating. Both reads have a floor. Only one has a ceiling. Past 3, the magnifier. And I want to sit on one specific frame from Kai's stream, because I've watched it 6 times and I don't think people are catching it. The phrase he uses to describe his relationship status isn't single. Not first. First he says, and I'm quoting the clip, "What happened in Vegas stays in Vegas, bro." He follows it with the groceries line, "Though I was just helping my cousin take the groceries in the house bit," which is him running interference on rumors that he and Jaidyn did more than casually link up in Vegas. Then he lands stressed. Then, only then, when the chat is already piling in, he drops the DM claim on Karlissa. Look at that order. Deflect. Downplay. Deflect again. Then attack the third party. That's not the sequence of a man defending a partner. That's the sequence of a man protecting himself from being tied to a situation, and Karlissa is the load-bearing wall he chose to knock down to do it. Because if Karlissa engineered the whole visibility play, then Kai isn't a bad boyfriend. He's a guy who got recruited into a segment he never signed up for. That reframing does work for him. It does not do work for Jaidyn. And one more magnifier detail. The probationary period line from Sam on Jaidyn's stream. That's a throwaway from a friend in the moment, but it's the tell. Jaidyn's own inner circle wasn't treating Kai as the man. They were treating him as a candidate. Sam said the quiet part out loud, on Jaidyn's own feed, and Jaidyn laughed it off. 3 days later Kai's on his own stream calling himself single. The circle knew before the audience did. Now the audio lens, because there's a beat in Kai's stream almost nobody clipped. Right after the DM allegation, the ambient volume on his MIC dips, you can hear him lean back off the ring light setup. It's brief, maybe a beat and a half, but the room noise underneath his voice tells you he physically moved. He didn't yell the accusation. He softened into it. That's not the audio profile of a man in a rage post. That's the audio profile of a man who rehearsed the line internally and delivered it once the chat was warmed up. Not proof. A read. But you can hear if you pull the raw upload and drop the vocal gain. The business lens catches something the audio lens can't. Pull the MILF Music LLC records, Jaidyn's imprint tied to the Blueface catalog. State filings in California, as listed on the California Secretary of State's business search, show the entity remained active through the current cycle. Which matters because it means every visibility play in the Kai Jaidyn arc is happening on top of a corporate structure that still has Blueface fingerprints on it. Kai isn't just dating around a family. He's dating around a paperwork trail. That's the kind of context that makes a casually dating retreat make more business sense than a my man advance. One of those framings incurs entanglement liability. The other doesn't. Behavioral lens. Watch how Kai handles names across the stream. He says J for Jaidyn. Casual, initialized, distanced. He says Karlissa for Karlissa, full name, direct, named. He says my cousin for Yaya, deflective, deniable, familial. 3 people, 3 linguistic distances. And the one he uses the most intimate framing on, my cousin, is the one the photos are actually about. That's not accidental. Speech patterns under pressure default to what the speaker wants the audience to accept without asking. Is asking the audience to accept cousin. Whether they do is a different question. Digital lens. The archived version of Jaidyn's plate stream on a fan-run mirror shows the timestamp of a "he act like he pay a bill in here" line landing roughly 9 minutes before Sam's probationary period line. That's a compressed window. 2 undermining lines about the same man inside 10 minutes on the same stream. And the stream was, per Jaidyn's own framing at the top of it, supposed to be about hospitality in her home. When the topic is hospitality and the subtext keeps drifting back to "does this man actually have standing here?" the stream is telling on itself before the guest even shows up. Had to zoom in 3 times before I trusted what I was looking at on the Yaya set. One of the images includes a reflection in a mirror behind Kai, and the reflection has a second figure in the frame. Not identifiable, not clearly Yaya, but visible. That detail hasn't been clipped by the major gossip accounts yet. It doesn't change the story. It changes the density of the story. And density is what these cycles run on once the primary quotes are exhausted. I already know what the Blueface loyalist camp is about to type under this one. That none of a magnifier beats matter because the only receipt that matters is Blueface release date. Faye. Note it. Move on. Pass 4. How the framing's split. Because this story is being read 3 completely different ways right now depending on which corner of the internet you're standing in, and it's worth naming them. The Jaidyn defense camp is running the "he's just stressed, they'll work it out, don't believe the clips" line. That framing leans on the fact that Kai never explicitly said the relationship was over. He said single, he said stressed, he said casually dating, and defenders are treating those as venting instead of announcing. There's a version of that read that isn't crazy. People do vent on stream. People do walk stuff back. The Karlissa defense camp, smaller but loud, is calling Kai's DM claim a fabrication, arguing his deflecting from the Yaya situation by inventing a villain who can't respond in the moment because she's not on his stream. That read has weight because, again, no screenshot has surfaced. A screenshot in 2026 is basically the price of admission for a DM allegation, and Kai didn't pay it. The third camp, the one that's actually reading the tape closely, is where the receipts point. That the plate clip, the Yaya photos, the Vegas deflection, the DM allegation, and the single and stress tag all stacked inside a single week don't tell a story of a rough patch. They tell a story of a public split being managed in real time on somebody else's terms. Steelman the softest read that they are just casually dating and this is being blown up defense. Faye. People catch feelings. People catch feelings. Streams are messy. But the softest read has to explain why Kai chose to attack Karlissa on stream instead of clarifying his own status with Jaidyn. It has to explain why Jaidyn's own friend used the word probationary on the record. It has to explain why the language on Jaidyn's end downshifted from "my man" to casually the exact moment the Yaya photo surfaced. The soft read explains none of that. The harder read explains all of it. That's not proof, that's weight. Now zoom out on the coverage itself. Hip Hop DX filed this under the celebrity personal beat and led with the DM allegation. Verbs like claimed and alleged ran through the piece, keeping the outlet at legal distance from Kai's accusation. Hot New Hip Hop, by contrast, led with the Yaya photos and made the Karlissa allegation a subhead. That's a different editorial choice. Hip Hop DX put the accusation on the marquee. Hot New Hip Hop put the visual evidence on the marquee. Neither is wrong. Both are strategic. If you only read one outlet on this story, you got one framing of it, and the framing you got wasn't the story, it was the outlet's read of which piece of the story would move the most traffic. The neighborhood talk went a third way. They staged the plate clip as the anchor and treated Kai's stream as the reaction to it. That inverts the actual sequence, because the plate clip came first, but the framing suggests Jaidyn's stream was the provocation and Kai's was the response. That's a subtle editorial hand on the scale in Kai's favor. Nobody accused TNT of it. But once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Coverage isn't neutral. Coverage is a lens choice. Then there's the WAC 100 corner. He hasn't spoken publicly on this specific cycle at the time of this recording, but his prior positioning during the Blueface tape cycle, as covered by all hip-hop, consistently defended the Potter family's business posture over the personal one. If Wack breaks his silence on Kai and Jaidyn, watch which framing he adopts. If he leads with business, he's confirming the third camp's read that this cycle is a rollout, not a romance. If he leads with family, he's confirming the Karlissa framing that everyone here is inside the Porter orbit whether they like it or not. New Steelman, because the Karlissa fabrication read deserves a full respect walkthrough before it gets dismantled. The read goes, Kai, cornered by the Yaya photos, needed a bigger villain. He picked Karlissa because she's the loudest and most polarizing figure in the orbit, meaning any accusation against her would land instantly in a pre-existing camp war. In that read, the DM never happened. Kai invented an architect to avoid being cast as an antagonist himself. That's coherent. It's not crazy. And in a lot of celebrity cycles, that exact play has run before. Here's why it doesn't hold. Callback, daughter-in-law regardless of paperwork. Callback, the traveling tournament geography. Callback, the September pattern of Karlissa publicly steering Jaidyn's visibility during Blueface incarceration window. Callback, Kai's I ain't never called that girl my girl on no camera. Callback, the probationary period line from inside Jaidyn's own room. The pattern that supports Kai's allegation was on the record before Kai made the allegation. He didn't manufacture the architecture. He named it. Whether the specific DM exists in the specific form he described is a screenshot question. Whether the architecture exists is a paper question, and the paper is already public. If you spotted the beat where Kai's MIC level drops right before the Karlissa line, drop the timestamp in the comments, because I want to know if it's actually as rehearsed as it sounds on my end. Here's the take, and I know some of you are going to swing at me for it. Ride with it anyway. The story everyone's running with is Kai Bandz went live and snitched on Karlissa. That's the headline. That's what's clipping. That's what's driving the outrage on both sides. But the real move on that stream wasn't the snitch. The real move was the reframe. Kai used a live audience to reposition himself from Jaidyn Alexis's man to a guy who got pulled into a family's PR strategy and is now walking out of it. He didn't break up with Jaidyn on stream. He broke up with the arrangement. And he did it by naming the person he sees as the architect of the arrangement, allegedly Karlissa, instead of the person publicly attached to him. That's not a boyfriend fumbling. That's somebody exiting a business deal. And once you see it that way, the stressed line stops sounding like a heartbreak confession and starts sounding like something closer to relief with a PR gloss on it. He's not stressed because his relationship is falling apart. He's stressed because he's untangling from a family whose brand has been in constant public churn for years, the Blueface incarceration, the Chrisine rock history documented across TMZ coverage, the custody dynamics around Chrisine Jr., the ongoing Karlissa content cycle. That's a lot of orbit for a rapper still trying to establish his own name. Cutting the cord is the sober business decision. Doing it on stream is the branding one. Extend the defense with the callbacks that actually hold it up. The cousin framing on Yaya. The I ain't never called that girl my girl retroactive denial. The MIC dip before the Karlissa line. The daughter-in-law regardless of paperwork preload. The traveling tournament geography. The MILF Music LLC still active status. Every single one of those points, taken alone, is deniable. Stacked, they read as a coordinated exit, coordinated on Kai's side, at least, even if the other side was still trying to run the My Man playback. That's the weight of the bold claim. Not one receipt. The lattice. Some of the mainstream framing on this cycle is going to age like milk on a dashboard. Rolling Stone's ongoing Blueface coverage has consistently framed the extended Potter family drama as celebrity-adjacent noise around a serious criminal case, and there's real editorial reason for that. The case is serious, the noise is loud, prioritization matters. But framing the Kai Jaidyn cycle as noise misses that the noise is the case's PR shadow. Every visibility play during an incarceration window is a proxy for the case. Coverage that separates them ends up covering half the story. That's not a slight on the outlet. That's a note on the frame. New jab, dry, the casually dating pivot didn't survive its own week. Another one, almost sympathetic. Jaidyn was handed the harder assignment on this. She had to hold a public relationship posture while the man attached to it was quietly reassessing his risk exposure. That's a losing hand no matter how well you play it. Cutting 1. The outlets that led with the DM allegation instead of the preloaded architecture behind it did the easy story instead of the actual one. An absurdist one. Somebody's PR handbook has an entire chapter titled How to Announce a Breakup by Complimenting Your Own Merch. Kai read that chapter. And a flat one. Because the section needs the drop, the receipts don't hate anybody. They just don't lie. Somebody in the comments has to know the actual origin of how Kai and Jaidyn linked up in the first place. Was it a mutual, a label intro, an event, a DM? Because every timeline I've pulled up starts mid-relationship and I want the first frame. Where does this go from here? Watch what happens when Kai releases the song he referenced on stream. Still drop that song was in his own words. And if that record drops in the next few weeks with any lyrical reference to the Jaidyn arc, the split is confirmed by the artist himself in the medium that actually matters to him. That's the likely landing. Song drops, subtle bar, plausible deniability, but the fans decode it in 6 hours and the casually dating framing dies on impact. Watch how that cascade extends past the initial decode. Once the bar lands and the fans confirm the reference, the streaming metadata will do half the work. A bump in first-day plays that outperforms his prior release curve is the artist's side confirmation the framing is real. By the following weekend, expect a reaction record from somebody in Jaidyn's camp, either her directly or a feature-adjacent artist inside the MILF music orbit. That's the second-order consequence. The third order is a podcast rotation. Somebody at the Breakfast Club or a rival morning show is going to book Kai inside 4 to 5 days if the record moves, and the interview will do the framing work the stream started. Don't be surprised if Karlissa Saffold responds inside 48 hours with either a screenshot of her own or full stream rebuttal. Karlissa doesn't sit on accusations. She's built her platform on responding, as covered by all hip-hop across multiple prior cycles. If the DM she allegedly sent exists, she'll either own it and reframe it as advocacy for Jaidyn, or she'll produce a receipt Kai didn't see coming. Either move flips the momentum back. The wild card is if she says nothing, because silence from Karlissa on a direct name accusation would be genuinely new behavior, and new behavior is always the tell. Extend that table flipper. Once Karlissa engages, don't be shocked when the response includes footage from her own archived DMs, not the Kai thread specifically, but adjacent threads that recontextualize what booking means in her vocabulary. She's shown before, on IG Live, that she treats DM outreach to artists as advocacy work for the Porter catalog, and the next appearance is going to lean on that same framing. Watch how the audience receives it. If the reception splits along existing camp lines, nothing changes. If it splits along new lines, if longtime Blueface fans start peeling off, that's the aftershock that matters. The Karlissa defense position depends on the base staying intact. A base fracture during this specific cycle would reset the entire Porter family public posture for the next year, and the reset will be visible in podcast bookings, feature rates, and merch drop cadence before it shows up in any headline. Once the dust settles on this week, the residue is what actually matters. Jaidyn Alexis has a music career she's been trying to build, the Stewie single, the label push, the visibility runs. Every cycle where she's positioned as somebody's girlfriend instead of somebody's artist costs her runway. This cycle costs her more than most because it ended with the man on stream calling himself single instead of calling her his. The residue is a repositioning problem that either her team solves in the next quarter or it calcifies. And if you've watched how these things settle, you already know which way it usually breaks. The 5U aftershock has a specific shape too. By 2031, the archive of this cycle is going to be somebody's YouTube video essay. Not this one, a longer one, a retrospective, the kind that stitches the plate clip, the Yaya photos, the Kai Live, and whatever song lands next into a single arc. The next window will decide which artist that essay treats as the protagonist. Jaidyn has the highest ceiling for that role because she's the one carrying an active catalog through the storm. Kai has the shorter path to it because he's the one who spoke the pivot line out loud. Once the reference record hits, expect the essay window to open inside 18 months, not 5 years. Internet retrospectives compress faster every cycle. And if a second, unrelated Porter family cycle breaks between now and then, this specific week gets folded into that one, and the individual paper trail we walk today becomes a footnote in a longer indictment. That's the residue's residue. And whichever way it lands, the reference record, whenever it drops, is the piece the whole arc will pivot on. Alright, court's not adjourned on this one. Part 2 is already in research the second Karlissa or Kai posts the next move. If you rode this whole receipt with the team, tap the like so the algorithm knows to keep this in rotation, hit subscribe if you're new, flip the bell so the follow-up doesn't get lost, and drop in the comments who you think actually authored this week, Kai, Jaidyn, or Karlissa. Because somebody engineered this. The paper says it wasn't the one on the thumbnail. And whoever it was, the song's about to tell us. You'll know where to find us when it does.